And it says we're live. So we're going to get the show started for you here in just a moment. It's a live interview. I am joined by Miss Kim Goguen, aka Miss Kim Possible from Life Force. We're going to talk about some information she's been sharing. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to kind of open it up towards the end for an Ask Me Anything. So just bear with us for the questions. If you have any questions, please wait till we actually say, we're going to talk about what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and get the stream started in just one moment.
Today. And we're just going to have a chat. A lot of people have been asking Chris about, is she real? What is all of this, right?
She's real. Just so everybody knows that she's real.
I'm real. I'm not an AI and whatever else they said. And so we came here to get some proof of, all the things that we've been talking about, right?
We have. So if you guys who are watching on my YouTube channel, if you could let me know in the comment section that the sound is all right. I always want to make sure that everybody can hear everything as clearly as possible before we actually get into this. So if you can give me like a 5x5 or something like that, that would be greatly appreciated. So as most of you know, I came here to try to get some more clarification, understanding of what was going on. And so far, Kim has been very forthcoming, very transparent. She shared a lot of documentation, which we're going to share today. So it looks like it sounds good on our end, on my channel. So we're good. So I guess, the first thing I would ask, because we've done 2 interviews, so we're not going to try to rehash on a lot of the stuff that we've talked about previous. So I encourage people who didn't check out those previous interviews to make sure you're checking them out. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel, a Life Force playlist. It has the interviews with Tank as well, so you can check those out. What is your current role? Because I know you were talking about a trustee and now a guardian. What is your role as far as? So
I have a lot of different jobs, right? So I am a guardian of assets, right? Mm-hmm. I also run the backside system to which all the other computer systems were built. And it's not just financial. It's also internet, telecommunications. There's a lot involved with that, right?
Yeah.
Stargate, Starnet, Control and Command is in there. And so we have access to a lot of different things with that system, right? Which we talked about. And we're going to show some of the former account numbers before we changed them. Plus, I'm also ground command. So we do have Life Force enforcement. And Life Force enforcement has been going around, stopping wars and attacks and a lot of different things. We talk about that each week on our Life Force calls, all the progress that we've made. Plus, I am also ambassador to the Universal Council. So I have frequent meetings there all the time. So, yeah.
Now, we talked about like the accountability thing. I know that you're accountable to everybody on this planet. In that sense. So is there, when you talk about the others and these, is there someone above us that you're accountable to as well to make sure that you're staying within doing what you're supposed to do?
We no longer recognize that hierarchy. They don't either. But, there's a council that kind of makes sure that everything is status quo between everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Are the relationships between, it'd be like kind of like the UN is to nations here, right? As is the council to the entire multiverse. And it's a very diverse council. There's many, many people there when you're there. And so I wouldn't say we have a responsibility to be good neighbors, right?
We do.
I mean, I basically say that. So that's kind of, I wouldn't call it a hierarchy. I'd call it more of a making sure we're being accurately represented with the Universal Council.
So now, with everything that you're trying to accomplish with transfers of money, the deposit of the $3,330, what is really preventing you from fully being able to do your jobs? Because it seems like you're being blocked.
Agencies predominantly. I mean, the ones that work for the Black Sun Generals. So they still think that there's hope for their world domination plan, and it's kind of sailed. That timeline has sailed, but that doesn't stop them from doing what they're doing, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, they've got all hands on deck, NSA and a bunch of other agencies trying to make sure that no one receives a dime directly from the trust, because if we do, we don't need them anymore.
What I can attest to is, like, if you watch the second interview that me and Ken did, we had so many technical problems. We had to restart our computer a couple times, and that's when we talked about me coming out for this trip. Also, I want to let everybody know that I don't have the greatest internet signal, so hopefully everything's streaming great, but I did want to say something about that. It's kind of trying to put this in the right words.
Well, let's start with when you came here, right? Tell them the story about what happened when you got off the plane, because everybody here thinks that, well, if she was in this government town, this retirement town, this protected town, what is she doing there? Is that really true? So Chris had his own experience when you get off the plane.
I've been asking lots of people about the area, try to get some research. One person did say that this area was known for government retirees and stuff to that effect. It wasn't a consensus amongst everybody, but that's not necessarily an indicator. But so there are some people that are knowledgeable to that. And when I was saying things about the technical issues, Kevin, who's hosting on the back end for UNN, can attest to this. Not that he's going to pop in, but I've had so many problems today with setting up the stream. It was very difficult. Me and Kevin were talking on Telegram, and we were getting cut off. That seemed to make sense because it was the internet. We were making direct phone calls, and still being cut out, while my phone and his phone has full bars of signal. So there was no reason for my phone to be cutting out and us to be having any communication issues. And it's like, I was getting frustrated. You saw it. And I don't even see how she could even deal with this on a full-time basis. I would probably end up trying to go personally kill all these people just to end it, because the frustration is like,
we're going to frustrate you some more while you're here.
No, we got past it, and I'm so thankful for that. So thankful. And we are coming in this with the most loving intentions. I'm coming here.
Yeah.
We speak sarcasm very fluently together.
Do.
And I didn't come here to disprove Kim. I came here to get clarity. I came here to get an understanding of what's going on. So I guess what we'll do is we'll do a little screen share on my end. And I think that they're going to do a screen share also on the end of
UnitedNetwork.news.
Good plug. You can't see everybody in the picture with me doing it like this, but the first image that we're showing, I want to go up on the screen. So I'm not sure if you guys are doing a screen share on your end or not on UNN, but if you are,
Kevin should be doing it.
Okay,
shortly.
cool. So what is this thing right here? The very first thing, the image that we're looking at.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people talk about, right? But no one ever gives proof. They say, oh, I've been to the vaults. You have Neil Keenan that talks about that. You have Charlie Ward that talks about that. But no one's ever given any proof that they had been there. So that was one of the first questions he asked me. He's like, well, how do I know you've actually done this, right?
Right.
So I pulled out one of my old hard drives, and I pulled out a whole bunch of pictures. And we're just going to kind of breeze through them real quick. Nothing major here. Just I picked out about 50 or 60 pictures, essentially.
It's a lot. And and what I'll also let people know is I'll do a follow-up video after this and try to go into a little bit more detail with some of the documents. I just want to make sure that we're good with the stream while we're doing a screen share.
Right.
So I will do follow-up videos, just trying to get as much what we could with this. We spent yesterday getting to know each other. And so when I said Kim is being transparent and forthcoming, there hasn't been any question that I've asked her that she hasn't given me an answer to. There hasn't been anything that she said that she doesn't want me to relay otherwise. I offered to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement for people who aren't familiar. And she said that she didn't really want that. She wanted to be open and transparent. And so that's what we're doing. So we're being transparent and showing the images and the stuff that she's shown me. And for people who are seeing these images, I mean, definitely comment in the video later and let me know, anybody know, because Kim, she has commented on my videos, so she may be reading the comments. So I would definitely encourage people to be checking that out. So the second image that we have here is, it's like this box looking thing. It's got the Chinese Republic National Treasury with what looks like it.
Yeah, these pictures were taken from a what you guys call a vault, I guess, in China. There are other ones that were taken in Germany and a few other places. Yep, these are just simple cash proofs. They always send the first proofs to whoever happened to sign off on it within the order. And it's not all Chinese, because we have German here too.
What is BEP?
Where are you seeing that?
On the label of the dollar.
I can't see it from here.
It's like the band that goes around the money. It has a big BEP. It's kind of a light print.
Those US dollars.
Yeah.
$100,000.
And these are all these pictures right here. You're saying are all from the vaults?
Yeah. Different locations though.
Thank you.
They're not all the same. Like just because they have Chinese information on them, some of these were actually taken in Russia.
This way I can full screen it. People can just see the images a lot better. So yeah, these are the images.
Those are cash proofs. So when they are going to print a new allocation of United States dollars in hard cash, also called M0, some places call it M1, they actually send the proofs into the vault and they keep them.
And that's what gets approved for the actual printing beyond that.
That is what authorizes the Federal Reserve to do something.
Okay.
Yeah. In this case, that's not the Federal Reserve. That's Brazil. Yep. That was in Brazil.
5,000 cruzios. That's probably the worst pronunciation of Espanol I've done, but I tried.
Yep.
720. That's a weird denomination.
72. Yeah. And then there's associated gold certificate coins with that. That's
I was going to say, these kind of remind me of like silver certificate looking type bills. Is it something similar to it? Like a gold?
Well, there are gold ingots that go with that.
Okay.
I think I sent you that next, maybe. That's the backside.
Backside.
Yeah, there's the ingots.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, these aren't any kind of pictures that we've seen like Charlie Ward or any of these people she mentioned provide.
Mm-hmm.
Are there, I have to ask as a journalist, are there any pictures in here that like show you in the vault with any of these things?
I'm the one there.
Right, you're taking pictures. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would be a question that somebody's going to want to ask, so I figured I would just get that out the way.
Mm. These boxes hold these really cool, unique coins, right? So what you do, and you can see the coins, I think, in the next picture, right? You there's like a laser, kind of like a suitcase, and you slide the coin in the slot, and then you turn on the laser light, and it actually reflects all these codes into different systems and different accounts on the wall. So you have the account numbers and access codes and whatnot. And it took two different sets of these because the order in the past used to get two different codes. And then the third key was always either now myself and in the past my predecessor.
Is this the United States seal, like, or the presidential seal by chance?
Yeah, it's the.
Looks somewhat.
I didn't know if maybe it was a combination of different seals. I wasn't sure.
It's the order seal. I mean, everybody knows that there's a pyramid on the
dollars.
The dollar. There's a pyramid on a lot of stuff, and then you have the pyramid with the eye at the top. So a lot of this is all kind of relative and the same.
What are these right here?
Those are some more of those coins that I told you slide into the slot.
Yeah, you were explaining that very, very much in detail yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things I really enjoyed about the conversation.
We actually have some notes that we did that too. I took pictures of that. So,
was that it? Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like it might have been it.
Okay, that's all you have in there. But on your other one, you do have.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously, she sent me a lot more images on my WhatsApp, and I don't have it accessed on my computer. So when I do a follow-up video, that's one of the things that I'll be talking about, is sharing a lot of that more in full detail. I mean, now, you were talking, you also showed like those code books. What were those in reference to?
Yeah, I gave you copies of 3 different books. I gave you copies of the Red Book, which is mentioned in the movie The National Treasure, right?
It has
They
a
talk
US
about you
seal
need
on
a
it.
level 23 clearance to have that and whatnot, right? So it has the presidential seal on the cover, right?
Okay.
There are vault numbers, which aren't necessarily vaults. Everybody thinks vault is a big hole in the ground where all this stuff is. Well, not really, because vaults could actually be satellite imagery of in-ground assets, as an example. So you'd be surprised
You
at
can
what,
put that in front of my camera.
Yeah.
But you can just hold it up in front of both
Yeah.
cameras if
Like
people can
that.
see these things.
right. So I printed out
Wow.
copies for them to have. I actually printed out a copy for you, sent you a copy as well.
Yep.
So, when you do your follow-up video, if it's not available right now. But this book, actually, the Red Book, initiated with the signing of the Green Hilton Agreement between JFK and Suwarno.
Okay.
Now, Suwarno and JFK, and I know everybody's going to hate me, but I will always tell you the truth. So it's
Well, I'll say
painful.
there's a saying that the truth hurts, and there's a reason for that saying.
So JFK and Suwarno were both Black Sun. They're both listed in the Black Book, right, as being members and trustees of the Black Sun.
Right.
So they signed an agreement together, which necessarily doesn't even have anything to do with Indonesian assets. Some of these assets and the vault numbers on there are listed in the upper left-hand corner or upper right-hand corner, and they start with 2 letters, right? RS would be Russia, CN would be China, and there's also AAIA numbers associated with the same. And so for viewers that don't know, the AAIA was actually the name of Hitler's playbook, right? His war book
Okay.
and his journal. And so that was the plan for how to acquire all this stuff in World War II. So members of the Black Sun and that party and that portion of the Black Sun are also issued an AAIA number.
Right.
So I also have another document, which I'll give you before you go, just remind me, from a Russian with an AAIA number claiming he owns the World Christian Trust, right?
Okay.
So Kennedy and Suwarno, 2 members of the agreement, the Black Sun has always been on the side of the Treasury of USA. So if you see any old notes or old bonds that says Treasury of USA, that has absolutely nothing to do with the Department of Treasury and everything to do with the Black Sun. So the Black Sun was always more in control of that section, and Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all the big names are associated with the Fed that we all know and don't like, right? People have only recently been talking about the whole other side of things. So your birth certificate bonds and everything, all that would be more affiliated with the Black Pope, the Jesuits.
We're talking like the SAKV stuff that people mention. Okay.
Exactly. And that is in the Black Book, which I also gave you a copy of.
Right.
And I think we sent one to our production team too. But
so it was red, black, and green. Were those the 3 colored books?
No, there was the predominant books were the red, the black, and the blue.
Blue. So I wasn't sure if it was blue or green. I couldn't remember because there was a lot of information yesterday.
I know. He had to go home.
It was like
6:30. His eyes were
information overload, and
yeah.
And had to absorb it and let it resonate in my brain.
So those 3 books were like what you call master books.
Okay.
And the Black Book has about 30 ancillary books that go along with it. That's where your yellows and your greens and, all these other ones come in that were underneath that. So these were used a lot for what they called security, and I call torture for us, but security for them, I guess, making sure we never rise up past slaves, right?
Would you say that all this is kind of a big spiritual battle, spiritual warfare?
Absolutely.
Because one of the things I've noticed in my journey of researching the legal fiction and all this stuff, it correlates to a lot of spirituality. It seems to come back to that. And so when we've talked about the status correction thing, and there's a lot of different groups that it's been a big push, and I'm still researching and finding out what's the route that we should take. And I'm sure there's several routes that people could take. And looking at it from a spiritual perspective, even from a slightly Christian standpoint, you have things like in Revelation talking about the dead will rise. is that a reference to people coming out of the legal fiction and becoming living men and women? Is this system, does it tie back to this Babylonian system? And is that what we need to get away from? So what is your feelings on the Babylonian system? Are we caught up in this ancient Babylonian money, magic, debt system?
We have been, and it's been unwinding quite rapidly now. The slavery system, remember, we were cattle, right? They looked at us as food in some cases, some groups.
Or property.
Or property,
chattel. But it's
chattel. Cows produced milk, we produced loosh. And they used us to sell that loosh in multiverse, right?
That's the energy of the soul.
Yes, the energy that the soul conducts and produces.
Okay, so it's a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. So I wanted people to make sure they were understanding what the loosh part was, because that was something I didn't have a lot of clarity on.
Yes.
Okay, so when a lot of these other groups, and not mentioning people's names because status correction seems to be one of the things that a lot of these groups have in common. It's not something that in the previous interviews we talked about that you're focusing on in these efforts.
No.
So for the people who think that status correction is the way to go, because we need to get out of this beast system, this Babylonian magic, money magic system.
I agree with you 100%.
Status change may give us that opt out. And that's where we're learning from each other at the same time. Because you need the help of all of us as much as we need the help of you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a team effort. You can't do this by yourself.
I don't want to. And it's not possible.
Right.
I got to do my part, right? I look at the world as like where the bell ringers in the chorus, right? There's all those people that stand up there and everybody's got a bell and they just stand there and wait until it's time to ring it, right? But yet at the end of the night, it's a beautiful symphony. And that's how I look at all 8 billion people that live here, right? I have one bell. I mean, that's it. I'm just doing the one job.
Right.
And I want to get the job done. And then I want everybody else to ring their bells so that we make beautiful music together. That's pretty much how the world is supposed to work naturally.
If you're not thinking status correction could be a way of getting out of that Babylonian system, what were some of the things that you could brainstorm that would help us to be able to separate ourselves from that system? If that makes any sense.
Well, for the last 16,000 years, right? This is a fact, unfortunately. We've all been and had this problem, right? And even more so a little bit before that, but it wasn't quite the same and it wasn't quite as restrictive. So if you look at like SESQB, the Vatican, you look at, I say SESQB, so I might be saying that wrong, so I apologize.
I don't even know if I say it.
You look at government systems, whether we went from kings and queens, rulers of earth, societies, no matter how you slice it, everything came to us from the same people.
Right.
Right. We all know that the George Washington was a Mason, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's very public knowledge.
And we can say like, well, let's go back to the Magna Carta. Well, the Magna Carta, if you actually read it, only thing it says is king is not good for this reason, not good for that reason, not good for this reason. And they say all the things that's wrong with the king. And then they say, we're not going to talk to him anymore.
Yeah, it seemed to be an agreement between barons and a king. It didn't really have anything to do with the people itself, because the barons and the kings would have been sovereign over the people.
Mm-hmm.
But the king would have been sovereign over the barons. But there had to be some sort of middle ground. Right. It doesn't leave us anywhere.
Baron Rothschild, right?
Yeah, it leaves us at the bottom of the system.
So it's the deal to turn the United States over to Crown Corporation, which is the barons, right? Rothschild. And it had nothing to do with our freedom at all as American citizens. I'm sorry. And I know everybody's going to hate me for that, but it's the truth. If you just really read the document, pay attention to what it says. If you're not a baron and your name's not Baron Rothschild, then you don't matter in that agreement in any way. There's the Bill of Rights that actually means more to us than anything else.
Yeah, it's what secures our rights.
Yeah, it says we're supposed to have all these things. But, take a look at right now with COVID. I mean, we're losing them all rapidly,
Okay, well, since you bring up that, we've talked about the republic idea, because that's another thing that's kind of going along in a lot of these themes with these groups is reforming the republic. And you probably have like 10 different groups all trying to do the same thing and not working with each other. And you don't seem to be very keen on the idea of restoring the republic, because you're like, this is a system that was built by Masons.
Well, restore, right? You're going back to something old and you're putting something back where it came from.
Yeah, it's definitely going a step backwards in that sense.
Right.
Because you're going back to, it's like refreshing your computer back to its original point.
Right.
If you have
exactly.
a problem.
You
So,
hit system restore. So why don't we just say we're forming a republic of the people, by the people, for the people, right? Because we're creating something that's never been done before, not only in the history of the United States, but in the history of the world as nations began to form.
I mean, we did talk about the idea of like, nobody who's alive today can even recollect how it was back when the country was first formed, because I can go back in my ancestry and see that my white ancestors chose to become indentured servants so that because it didn't seem like maybe there weren't jobs, whatever the situation might be, but people chose to opt into a slavery system.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me question how much sovereignty really was there.
Not always knowingly, though, in a sense.
And the idea with the alliance.
They love complied consent and word
Right.
magic.
Right.
They love
Word magic. That's a good
word
one.
magic. Money magic,
double
word
speak.
magic, double speak.
I'm starting to even think the English language was a bad idea. It seems like it's a very
So was
corrupted. Well, I think the true form of Latin was fine. It was the debasement of Latin that was bad. It was the dog Latin, where they tried to dumb it down for the people to keep the people ignorant. That was Emperor Justinian. He created a lot of this corpus juris that is under the system. And in Latin, that could mean body of law, or it could mean law of the dead.
Yeah.
Depends on how you want to interpret it.
I can interpret a lot of things that way. Exactly. Law of the dead.
Because it seems like this legal fiction system is a death system.
Well, they claim ownership over your soul, right?
Cult of death.
So
They are the cult of death. They
Right.
worship death. Yep.
that's hardcore. I mean, it's a lot to take in for anybody who's watching this. When you're trying to get a grasp on this, and I try to be as intuitive as possible, but I'm cursed with a very logical mind, which
I have the same.
and I say it's a curse, but it's a blessing too. It's a double-edged sword because but the unfortunate thing is, I don't think that everything can always be explained with pure logic. I like to think it could be, but it just doesn't. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree.
You can't really explain everything logically. And that's kind of been what's been a little bit harder for me to accept, is just not being able to always be able to, and have to go on faith and trust. Because it seems like the world has been set up for us not to have faith, not have trust. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. And I agree with you. I mean, I'm the same way as you are, right? Show me. And that's how do you think I got all these pictures and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And been all these places. I had to go see for myself, because I don't believe, there were too many inconsistencies in this whole dragon family story. And that's how the journey started. I was like, wait a minute, that makes no sense to me. I've actually watched those elders look like they're dirt poor and all this. And then they go in one side of their cave, and then they come out the other side and go eat a $5,000 meal, like turtle something or other. It was some kind of delicacy over there in China, and that was where, and they laugh, right? Because all the white people bought it.
Right.
Everyone else, no one else figured it out. I was like, there's no way. And the reason why you can always tell, how people say, well, I built the house with my own hands. And then you look at their hands, right?
Yes.
And they're as soft and smooth as
I have very
baby's bottom.
smooth hands.
And I can tell you, from my standpoint, I mean, I've got cuts, I've got scars. I mean, you can clearly tell that my hands are not your typical feminine hand, right? So, but the point is that if you tell me,
she's real.
Yeah.
there's no nothing. She's touching me. I got Kim Goguen touched me, everybody.
No. So point is that it wasn't meshing up. Like, you know, if someone lives in a cave or like, you know, in a tent or in the woods and hunts and eats berries for a living, you know, their hands don't look like that. So I started, well, everybody else was like in awe. I walked around and I'm like, where are they going? You know, I could hear them talking, and then there they are, right? The cave leads underground to a mansion, and there they are just having a party, right?
For everybody, we're gonna open up for Ask Me Anything here in just a little bit. So just bear with us, and we'll give you a chance to ask. But I need everybody who's in my YouTube channel to make sure you're being respectful. If I have any admins and there's some problems with people, I would appreciate if you guys could help out with that. Charlie, be respectful. I would appreciate if you would just be respectful. We're gonna get to the questions.
Honestly, truthfully, I don't mind. I mean, I
just
don't mind
ask
if
people
everyone,
to be respectful is all.
Well, I know, but
there's no reason why you can't be respectful and still get your point across.
You know, here's the point. They have nothing to say.
No,
she's a bad person. She's a scam. Well, why? Go ahead and ask me why.
Well, let's ask this first question.
Proof. I show you pictures.
I'll come back to the other stuff.
I gave you the old code books. I mean, you know, but apparently I'm doing something wrong. So.
Charlie Fraud wants to ask Kim, where's my $3,300?
You must think Charlie's a fraud too.
So Charlie, here's what I need you to do. Okay. I need you to get up some really good strength and call the NSA and ask them why they blocked your $3,330 out of their facility in Utah. And not only that, also the facility called SuperNap in Nevada. So give them a call, the phone number. You can find the SuperNap building for sure, and give them a call and ask them where your $3,300 is, and they'll tell you.
Now, I mean, Kim has told me that the system that she uses that would give her access to this is not something that's here. So do you want to? Okay. So what
everybody's looking for something
that's not necessarily what they're expecting. That was the thing I was getting at, is like what we expect things to be aren't always what they are.
Look, if they found it, if these agencies that all work for the Black Sun found it, I'd be gone.
Right. Okay.
You know, if they could figure out how to access it, I'd be gone tomorrow.
How do we move forward? I guess that would be a good one. Like, and then we'll get into this alliance thing and talk about some of these ways. But in your mentality, because you don't talk about leaving the system, you know, exiting the system, changing status. You're talking about doing like,
well, are you exiting the system? That's the problem I have, right? There's many different people talking about different ways to exit a system.
Right. And I'm not sure even which way would be the correct or right way.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Well, UCC filings go to the ANNA system. The ANNA system has nothing to do with Anna von Reitz, people. It is the Association of Numerical Numbering Agency in Belgium, and it is an agency. So every single piece of paper you file anywhere in the world goes into this with a number. You get a number on your UCC filing, right? When you quote unquote exit the system, all you did was go in a big circle. It's like saying I'm going to exit the living room and I'm going to walk around the sofa and come around the other side and sit back down. That's exactly what I just did. Yeah.
So then how would we, is there anything that we can do aside from our actions to become sovereign? So where we can have the dominion that we're supposed to have and take away the jurisdictional control from these governments, these central banks that control the governments, and that whole control factor. Is there something that we can do to allow us to be self-governing until, so in case like the United States decides they want to require some sort of vaccination.
Okay.
How could we as individuals say no and not have any ramifications about breaking the law, doing something illegal, unlawful, and maybe even being arrested or putting in a detainment camp? Who knows?
Well, during this COVID thing, a lot of people have been arrested for all the wrong reasons, right? And I understand that. Most of the average everyday citizens, even with the police, are getting tired of it, right? They know it's wrong. They know if the masks worked, we wouldn't still be wearing masks, right?
Right.
Yeah. They know if lockdowns work, we wouldn't still be in lockdown, right?
So true.
I mean, the numbers go up. In some countries, there are more cases of COVID than there are citizens. You know, it's I'm not supposed to say that on that tube thing, right? I'm sorry. On the There's.
I haven't gotten a real strike, so I'm good.
Okay, well,
I'm good.
I don't want to be your first customer. So.
I'm good though. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen. So.
Well, so
it's just delaying.
With everything that's going on right now, it makes no common sense. So, I mean, I've had people fly recently out of here, right? Yeah. Some of my team flew in, and they flew out recently, and they wouldn't take his gator. I think you even had a problem with that.
They American Airlines, and I'm not sure if this works for everybody. They changed their policy. So they said that I couldn't use my neck gaiter. I was going to be compliant because I can't fly if I'm not wearing a mask, and I had to fly. I don't drive, so I flew. So I had to follow the parameters. And the neck gaiter that I have is double layered with silver material lining that's probably more protective than most masks that people are wearing. And the people in North Carolina, when they said that, and I showed on the mask, they're like, "No, that's fine. It's approved." And then when I do a layover in Texas, they were fighting with me, and I'm trying to tell them the same airline told me it was fine, and like you're telling me it's not fine. Like there's a conflict here. Like you don't even have you're not the same uniform agreement on things. And you told me the situation with Tank, and the crazy thing about that, when it comes, I was telling you, since then it may be Tank, and everybody might have escalated. They're not saying negative things about Tank, but when you're pushing something, now they may have changed their policy based off that, because they're saying, if you're on the plane and you take the mask off, basically you're going to be banned from all the American airline flights, and all the airline companies are working together, and you'll more than likely be put on a no-fly list. And they're also saying, even though it's mandates, not law, that it's a federal crime.
It's not a crime.
So it's
and the police refused.
I would have loved to have been able to like show some sort of documentation and be like, you don't have the authority to tell me that I have to wear this mask.
The police agreed in New York with Tank, actually.
And I talked to you about Professor Dolores Cahill trying to create that Freedom Airline. So that's something I would like to introduce you to. And I guess I would kind of like go into like the alliance thing. I've mentioned to you like where I've been trying to bring some of these groups together.
Right.
And, obviously people got to come to the table and find some agreements and ways that we can work on common unities for the common purposes and goals. How do you feel about opening up this to where it's not just Life Force and there's other people that work within the same parameters in a parallel, working within the same goals, but just not Life Force? How would you be supportive of people like that? Or does it do people have to join? Does it have to be a Life Force specific thing?
No, it doesn't have to be a Life Force thing. We created Life Force because Life Force is that energy that exists in all of us, right? That's what the name means. It's not a cult. We're not telling people to go bow to some god somewhere or anything like that. And we're not telling people to overthrow the government or anything like that in any country either. We're basically saying, look, if we're going to win this, and truly, once they fall, we have to rise up, because nature will tell you when something falls, something else will rise up to take its place, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how you do it, right? We have to join together in unison. We have to all work together. We have to learn how to be sovereign.
Time out, Charlie.
Oh, no, he can keep going.
I did. It's 5. He's got a 5-minute timeout. It's already done.
Okay. Well,
it's my channel.
Yeah. So anyway, it doesn't matter. So the point is that if we are going to succeed, we must learn how to treat each other properly as one thing, right?
Right.
So right now we're doing a live stream, and we obviously have someone that is just talking, right? Saying I'm this and I'm that, and that's totally fine. I don't mind it.
Right. And I appreciate you saying that I didn't have to do that.
If you think that we're going to get off this call, and when all the money does come, that I'm going to be the first, he's going to be the first guy I'm going to call, it's not true, right? Because how can you change the world with someone with that attitude?
You can't. I mean, that's why, when I even talk about the idea of treating people how we want to be treated and being self-governing, if we just had to flip the switch, I don't think that the rest of the world is ready to govern themselves. If there was
but you can't even govern yourself on a chat for 5 minutes.
Right. So it doesn't sound like Charlie Fraud's like even capable right now of even self-governance, which kind of defeats the purpose of what we're talking about.
What does sovereignty mean to you?
To me, sovereignty means me being able to control what I want to do, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. That to me is violating natural law. Like lying to somebody is harmful. So all these things that are negative can all be put under just do no harm or no harm. That simplifies it. But
taking responsibility for
being accountable for your actions. And I realize this legal fiction system is a limited liability system. And I know there are perks to the limited liability. And that's where I've been looking into like where I was talking to you about creating your own artificial entity, like some of these people have taught me a little bit about that I'm learning, and taking that entity and putting it into your trust to allow you to interact in both as the controller. But that would require a status change.
Real quick, when it comes to the status change, like I think what it is with like the current system, where we're treated as not like, you know, real living people on the land.
We're treated like chattel.
Right. So like, because we've, you know, agreed to these things over the years, whatever, not really knowingly in a sense, but like, so I think that's the big thing when a lot of people are correcting their status, like it's changing like who you really are and looked at in a sense. Like you're not being treated as a bonded surety to a bankrupt franchise in a sense.
In part, okay. And you're both right.
Okay.
In my feeling, my personal opinion.
And this is where we're learning from each other,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So,
because you are a real person.
well, one thing I see all the time, and I see it all over the internet, all over the alt media, everywhere, okay, is number one, I need someone to blame for my problem.
Always. Got to have a scapegoat.
It's got to have a scapegoat. You got to have a bad guy. Every good story has a bad guy.
Right.
And then you got to have a good guy, right? Someone, insert name here, is going to save us. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the lawyer over here, the ex-president over there, the Putin was the savior for a while, right? It's a program. It is a program. It is conditioning. And we have all been conditioned to accept the fact that someone else is going to fix it, right? If it's not me, it's someone.
Right.
You've got someone in mind, the Chinese elders, the government, the good military, the alliance, the Earth Alliance, the Galactics. Someone is going to fix it. Anyone but you, right? No. That is not being sovereign. If you're going to be sovereign, you have to take personal responsibility for the fact, like, hey, I didn't put us here, right? I didn't get us in this mess.
No.
Right?
I don't think any of us really.
However, but I've still got to get out of it, right? So, as an example, for you, if they canceled your plane ticket and said, well, that's the Gator guy over there, right? We can't let him on the plane.
Right.
Okay. Now, you still got to get home, right? So you can phone a friend, phone Cody and say, hey,
you want to charge you out of the country?
$200 $100. You want to go for a ride or whatever, right? We rent a car, we do something. But you're going to do something to save yourself.
Going to be productive, counteractive to what's going on.
Right. Are you going to call your mom or your dad or Trump or someone to come save you from Colorado?
I would, if I was exhausting all my own efforts and couldn't find a way, I would maybe ask somebody if they could possibly help out. You know, but I mean, it wouldn't be a monetary thing, obviously. But if it came down to it, you know, people I trust. But that's not really a situation that we're in.
Since the inception of the United States, we've never had a president that has not been a member of a secret society to this very moment.
Believe that?
Not one. Pick a president. I mean, all of them.
Okay, I think there were 3 presidents assassinated. There was...
Oh, Lincoln was part of it too. It's just the societies fight against each other for what they think they want to do.
So there's no presidents that you feel that were working towards the
Reagan was
good?
black son, 150%. Bush Jr., Bush Sr., both black son.
And they're aware of their black son. They're aware of what they're...
Clintons, Rothschilds, Blue Dragon. I even sent you a picture of the Blue Dragon ring, right, by the way.
Okay.
That is the British version, and that is where the Clintons hail from. Pence, black son.
Yeah, I wish I could get my WhatsApp.
Trump, black son. Sorry.
Trump, black son.
Sorry. But remember the blogs, if this was flashback 5 years ago or 6 years ago, all of the global currency reset blogs were saying Obama's going to save us. Obama's signing off on it. Dunford's doing it. Mattis is the guy. You know, it's always a guy. There's always some guy somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Gonna come save you from your mess, right? Charlie might be the next guy. Maybe we'll appoint him the president, see if he can do it, right? Because he wants me to come save him and get him his $3,000.
Yeah, his $3,000. I
Yeah.
mean, it's his. He's like being very vocal about it being his. And if it was gifted, you know, he should just be appreciative. And obviously, this is I mean, it's being blocked. So I mean, I don't fully understand it because it's not something I can look at. I can't touch it. I can't get that logic behind it. So that's where it's kind of been a little bit hard for me to like wrap my head around some things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is a lot to encompass as well when you start thinking about everything. And how would you define what the black sun are for people who are just hearing this term just recently or not even familiar with what they are?
You can Google it. It's the Order of the Black Sun. They worship death. They are the creators of the Freemasons. They're the creators of every military, every intelligence agency. You know, if you're waiting for the Jesuits, you know, they also created the Jesuits. They also created communism, Nazism. They're the operation runners. They ran security. They are the demons to the line of Solomon. Okay. The line of Solomon is your Rothschilds, you know, Ital, the Chabad, parts of the Chabad, I should say, not all of the Chabad. You know, and that's where you've got one was protecting the other and not being protective of us per se, but being protective of their way of life and their world order. You know, we're not going to have a new world order. We've been living in one and we're trying to get out of it.
How far does the Black Sun go back? Philly Girls was asking.
1,008 years times 16,000 years. They were here long before. They originated in Eastern Europe. They've been here long before Solomon.
Trying to look at questions while people are
3,000 years they've been in that position. Let's put it that way.
Are they the same as the Black Hats? Walk-in Faithful, I think I'm saying it correctly, is asking. Are the Black Sun the same as the Black Hats?
No.
Okay. I guess we'll just go ahead and open up some questions. I'm going to kind of go from where we're at. So if you've asked questions before now, I'm not going to go back and look. So this would be the point where you can start asking questions. And the more you post, the less I'll be able to see. So I'm going to highlight this one from Diane. How does Kim work with Trump? Do you work with Trump?
I did when he was in office. The system has a diplomatic line. It also has its own country code, right? It's known in the archives as no-name country or unknown country. It's been registered long before my tenure. I did not register it. The country coding system and the diplomatic line system came into effect in 1948. And that is when the trust, or it's not really a trust legally, okay? So it is a country and it has its own central bank legally. And it is the master country code, which all the other central banking codes existed. And it has existed prior to the advent of the Fed, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get where that comment was so I can stop showing it. It's like everything's moving so fast.
That's okay.
There it is. Okay. Let's see here. Mr. Spierschmelonen, appreciate the super chat there, my friend. And thank you for the contributions for the trip. Kim touched on Bitcoin run by NSA. Would love some more clarity on what will happen to cryptocurrency versus other utility token solutions like Theta and what she thinks will happen in time. I guess we can just break it down to just like Bitcoin, because I know you're not like super familiar with all the, because there's like thousands.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all of the cryptocurrency, but think about the name.
No, you were saying you feel like all the code is not transparent, that they're only giving a portion of the code.
Yeah, all banking systems, they've always had 13 lines of code. What you're seeing in the open source is the first two. And it's the same thing with the banking system in totality. You only see the first two lines of code. So if you're an IT person and you work for Chase Bank or Bank of America or Sberbank in Russia, you're only seeing the first two lines of code. Okay. There are 13 hidden lines in there always that gave them external access into the front side banking system, right? Mm-hmm. The next code line up was the NSA, globally, by the way. next code line up there was the Pentagon and military systems. They all had access. GCHQ has access. All of them had access to the backside system, and each one all had their own separate access codes and key codes. So with cryptocurrency, right? I'm very familiar with blockchain technology. I've had to become familiar with blockchain technology.
Right.
The power behind blockchain isn't enough to process in a singular system every transaction that happens in the world. That's number one.
That's what they call scaling in the cryptocurrency space. It's not scalable to match Visa.
Right.
It's got to surpass Visa before they could even move to that.
Oh, much more than that.
But now the ironic thing with that, though, is Visa's just announced that they're going to start using the Ethereum network to start processing their payments.
And there's a reason for that too.
Okay.
Because Visa lost its network.
So they need another network to utilize.
They're going to need another network to utilize in order to.
Now, I would say, this is something that I'm going to have to explore. I'm going to have to talk to
Visa
coders.
is MI6, by the way.
Okay. I'm not a coder, so
US agencies.
I can't say by going through the open source, I can't audit it myself. So I would like to talk to some of my friends and anybody who's watching this that may be a cryptographer. And, if you disagree with what's being said, share some logic with why you disagree.
Right.
Because I'm trying to understand it myself. I was thinking everything about Bitcoin is transparent, completely open source from the first line of code to the last line of code. That everything you don't have to trust it. You just verify because it's a glass house. You can just look right in. So you don't have to trust. That's been my perception of it.
Right. And I do agree with the fact that this government owned, which the Federal Reserve, for those of you that don't know, actually used to control or act as a pass-through from the backside system to the front side system, and every allocation number for every bit of currency in the world, right? So the Federal Reserve controls RMB. So if you think the Chinese are going to come in and save us with RMB, you're still talking to the Federal Reserve, okay? The Li family, your golden dragon family, is a member of the Federal Reserve. One of the coins in here that I pulled out, which is probably in your other set.
The Li family, like Chinese Lees?
Yes.
Because one of the creators of a cryptocurrency, Litecoin, is a Charlie Lee.
Okay. Well,
he worked for Google. He went to MIT.
Okay. He worked for the CIA.
And he went to MIT.
Yeah.
So he was basically almost.
And that's in the chart I gave you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chart we're talking about is the chart that would have been like the hierarchical system going from.
Yeah, want me to pull it out? Because your viewers probably have never seen it. It's right there.
You want to grab it?
Wow, where's it at? Oh, right here.
The big double document. It's like that big, huge thing I was telling you about. And you don't mind the randomness with the questions going back.
No.
Okay. Somebody was asking, does Life Force Enforcement have a plan to take down the corrupt front end world leaders? I know we talked a little bit about this, and I know there's certain rules within our realm that we have to respect, even on both sides.
It's called being sovereign, right? This goes back to your sovereign question.
Okay.
I know it'll be random, but you cannot be the aggressor, right? You can protect your life or the life of an innocent. You cannot be the attacker, right?
Be careful, don't fold it all the way up. I just want to make sure you didn't rip it. That was all.
It's been around the world, guys.
It's had its.
This is just part of it. Right?
That's only half of it. If we pull the whole thing up, when I did that, though, it was like it almost wanted to rip apart. You guys see how big this is?
Yeah.
I'm holding the bottom end right here. I'm saying, what, 3.5, 4 feet?
No,
yeah, probably 5 feet.
Yeah, about
or
5.
4.5.
4.5.
It's huge. I took pictures of every single section, scanned it, everything. But this is where I didn't want to rip nothing or make it.
So when I first got this job, this is where this came from. They wanted me to adhere to this plan.
Thank you.
So that plan is a combination of on the top, you have the control of all industry, right? And all new technologies, which they've been fairly successful at, right? Up to this point, not allowing new technologies to come through that they couldn't control, right? And then at the bottom, you have a little further down, you have a financial structure. A little further down, you have the political structure.
Okay.
And how they control the agencies and all of these things, right? So when you say corrupt world leaders, okay, There's only two types of countries. Ones with civilized corruption and ones with non-civilized corruption, okay?
Right.
Those are the only two types of governance we have.
So we have civilized corruption.
We have civilized corruption.
The African
Semi-civilized.
nations may experience the other, with like because their leaders are somewhat dictator-ish.
Well, you know, some of the societies have rules, right? When you walk out of the line.
Yeah.
Now, in the U.S. here, their secret rule is they're not using guns anymore. So random people have heart attacks. Random people have dementia all of a sudden. Random people have, you know, cancer that's fast moving and they're gone in 10 days. You know, a lot of truthers have experienced some of these things too.
See, I had that mentality when I first got into this, and I was thinking, like, if the problem is the 1%, it would be really easy for the 9%, the 99% to get rid of the 1%. But then you got the philosophical issue of that 1% being replaced by another portion of the 99%.
And we have a lot of those people
same
too.
cycle, and this becomes a repetitive thing that we just keep.
Do you notice how some of these groups, like even the ones that you've been trying to work with that want to form an alliance, right? You've got people in the chat, we hate her, we hate her, we hate her, right?
I haven't seen hate, but it's been pretty harsh.
Yeah, and I expected it. But the point is that, okay, so I'm telling you the truth and you don't like it. That's their problem.
The truth hurts.
Right. So as a fact, right, you've got groups that think that this law that was written for us is the way by Masons. You've got this law that's written for us is the way. This country is the way. This type of governance is the way. But you're still putting a hierarchical system over all the people, right?
Right.
So how does that work? Is that better? Is that what you're looking for? You say you want to be sovereign, which means we all get along, right? We may not agree for everything,
which
right?
we can't.
But we agree on one thing. We all want freedom, right?
That's a common bond. It should bring us together.
We don't want anyone making decisions for us. But yet the only thing we can say when given the opportunity to make a decision for some people is, I'm not doing that. That's not the way. This is the way, right? So you can choose that way, and that's fine. But we still have to work together in order to gain our freedom. It's not going to happen. You can approach it this part that way, right? And I can approach this part that way. But the one thing I'm going to tell you, probably everybody listening to this broadcast, is if nobody ever saw a mask except for like at the dentist in a surgical office ever again, I mean, how many people are going to be unhappy about that?
A lot.
You think so? I think a lot of people would prefer to wear masks every day.
There seems to be a lot more people lining up to get the jab than there are people saying no. I'd like to see that shift, but it seems like
there are more people over the age of 55 that are just ready to get it. It's because of the conditioning done by the secret societies on humanity at that time was a lot different and a lot easier than it is now. We had no internet.
Right.
We had internet, but we had no access to internet. People are talking more. There's, all kinds of shows like yours. Everybody's trying to get the truth out there, and you can't hide it anymore. So it's actually their own systems that were created to control us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are actually being used against them.
Which is the way it should be done. I mean,
I often thank them. I thank them for airlines, right? They may control all Airbus controls, Boeing controls the majority of airlines. They are owned or corporations. However, now we can fly anywhere. We can go anywhere, right? You get on a plane and go wherever and check it out yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Right.
Go look yourself. We can do that now. We can make friends all over the world now in an instant with the push of a button. We can watch real people having a real conversation like you and I right now.
It's very beautiful.
Okay, so not all, because, we're both in our 40s. Not all, but the majority of people are over the age of 55 that are really buying into this. It was the same thing with the toilet paper crisis.
No, I can agree with that. It definitely seems like the younger people, because I can approach certain people and ask them, like on an Uber or Lyft ride, are you cool with us? Neither one of us wearing a mask. And the majority of the time, a lot of them will be really cool with that. Even the ride when I got from the airport to my hotel room in here, it was the same situation. It's like 4 people in a vehicle, no masks. So
freedom.
And I feel fine. I feel fine. That's I guess what we'll do, because I mean, I am kind of slightly limited too with Kim, and then we're not going to do this all night. So we'll maybe take like 3 or 4 more questions. Davy Boy Truth 22. What's up, my brother? I appreciate you, man. Chris asked Kim what she sees our planet this time next year. And can we get the green light to stand up to the corrupt scumbags? And I'm not really 100% sure what that means. So I'll let you like interpret that to yourself.
There's a lot of good people out there, right? There's a lot of good patriots all over the world. And they want those people gone, right? The societies. And these are the societies that have infiltrated the government that have created the problem in the first place, right? What he's asking for is, can we be free in a year? It's really not up to me. It's really up to all of you.
I mean, I say when enough people
we
take
are
a
doing
stand,
our part for sure.
Nothing can stand against the people when enough people
take a stand.
And that's what we're trying to do, is build those numbers so that what we can do to be effective. Because when you don't have enough people taking a stand, they take out those people.
Right.
And then the movement just dies.
Well, and if everyone in your group, your potential alliance, right, all got together and we all voted, right? Do we want the Bill of Rights back? Should we amend the Bill of Rights? It should be updated. I mean, it's quite old, right?
For sure, yeah.
You know,
updated to current times.
That's my opinion.
It should be a living document that constantly is being changed and modified to our current existence.
Right, because our existence
was a lot different than in 1776.
And 20, 30 years from now, if we can stop the suppression and the oppression of technologies, imagine what rules aren't going to apply then, right?
Yeah. So true.
And how many rules do we need if we really all start acting as a sovereign? We take personal responsibility for our issues. We take personal responsibility to correct them. And we do the best we can to do no harm to others, right? If we could all manage to just do those things, like we can't even get on the internet and have a chat because everybody over here is going to, is exploding right now. So you see what I'm saying?
Somebody wants to know if you'll go out on a date with them.
I'm sorry, but there is someone in my life. So, but thank you.
Okay, let me see what we got going on here. I do appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you guys have not smashed that like button, please smash the like button.
Can you grab the cord?
Power cord?
Oh, cord.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here, my friend.
I know. Thank you, sir.
First of all, let me see.
Corey works with us, has worked with us for years now.
He's a mutual friend of me and Kat's. Kat's my media coordinator. He's in a Telegram group with us. So, got to be quickness. You might have to. You got it. Cool. So JG resurfacing. First of all, we want to thank. And there's behind. So JG surfacing says, first of all, we want to thank you for your time. So appreciate that. And second, we would like to have the final answer on the dinar on if the dinar will be revalued. How do you feel about this RV situation that people bring up, and hoping that maybe if I purchase 100 million of said note that's been devalued, that when they reset the currency, you'll actually have that dollar amount and you'll actually get rich quick almost?
Well, I agree with a number of different things, right? First of all, I've actually had a conversation with Mayor Rothschild, is who I was talking to. And he told me flat out that the dinar was meant to be carrots for, can I say that word? Jackasses. That's what he told me.
You totally say jackasses.
Okay.
That's probably the least bad thing we've said.
That's what he told me. Okay. So they created it initially, just like they did the thing with the Kuwait. And there's actually a picture of the Kuwaiti dinar. New Kuwaiti dinar in the pictures I sent you that I got out of a vault in Russia, believe it or not, right? Okay. Everybody thinks that, well, the cabal is American or the cabal is Chinese or the cabal is here. No, the cabal is everywhere. Unfortunately, it is the global deep state. All right, so that's how it all started. But I agree with you in the fact that there should be, complete autonomy over your currency by the people for the people. Right. So currency works on supply and demand. Bottom line. Okay.
If it's not the Federal Reserve who has the unlimited printing of
Well,
money power.
and it was supposed to be based on the GDP of the nation. So the GDP of Iraq is nowhere near supporting hundreds of trillions of United States dollars, right?
Right. Yeah.
Even if they sold every drop of oil that the bacteria, could produce.
Right.
So you'd basically, if that was currency were to come into play, and then there was hundreds of trillions or quadrillions even of currency that goes immediately into circulation without a demand for it, you're going to drop that currency down to even much less than it's worth right now.
Right.
Okay, that's how currency
Like
works.
Zimbabwe, Venezuela, great examples of they revalue, but it's not an RV. It's just where they're adding zeros to their digits and stuff. Like where you might be buying a gallon of milk and it might cost 100,000 bolivar, but that might equate to being $3 US. Yeah. Which is kind of where they're at with the hyperinflation in Venezuela now.
Exactly.
Zimbabwe's already experienced.
Zimbabwe's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like $1 billion is worth like $2 or something.
100 trillion you could buy for $60, $70. I don't know about now, but
and that's the idea is people think that if I buy that for $160, that when they revalue that it'll be worth 100 trillion or something to that effect. That's kind of the thought process on that.
Gurus and stuff out there.
Right. And so they use the dinar in a lot of cases in the beginning before it was accessible by the public. Right. I mean, I was in, I was in Switzerland in November of 2010, and I sat face to face with a guy that handed me some Amero. Does anybody remember the Amero?
I remember when they were talking about combining Mexico, Canada,
they still
United
are.
States.
That is the plan of Rothschild. The dragon families wanted to have 7 currencies in the entire world, and the dinar was technically supposed to be one of them. Okay, so they based it off of the fact that they would be successful in controlling the entire Middle East with one currency,
being the dinar.
Yeah. Now they also, alternatively speaking, also promised the Saudi Arabians the same thing. Okay, and
it's like using the same information or same sort of asset to get two loans off the same asset,
which
you can't.
They're money magic, right? So go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. My bad.
I was just saying the thought process behind it is we understand that a lot of really good people have been hurt by it. A lot of really good people have projects as well. And, it's all about the projects and the restoration of the planet, the cleaning up of the environment, the creation of jobs that really pay, because not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
But we need to take care of our own people.
You shouldn't have to work 2-3 jobs to survive and not have a life. You should be able to work one job, no matter what that job is, and still at least be able to like pay all your basic things where that's not a stress. But it's so sad to see people working so much and they can't even live.
And you should be able to do what you love.
Right.
You should.
And make money at it.
That's what they tell you should do. You find a career that you love.
Artists. Let's take artists, right? Beautiful paintings, and they're not worth anything until someone's dead. For the most part, except
unless you're like
Warhol,
Banksy or something like that. Yeah.
Very rarely, right?
Yeah.
Architects, the same thing a lot of times. Musicians, same thing, and it's because you won't conform to the cabal's music, right? Ever since 1998, they've been putting low frequencies in music so that they could enjoy, right, your feeling that comes out.
And we talked about the importance of frequency. Frequency is kind of almost like
it's the key to everything.
The underlying key to everything, yeah. So it makes sense. Someone was asking, I'm not going to go into the second part of the question, but are the kids being rescued from the dumbs? Because I know we've spoken about and what are the dumbs for people who may not be familiar?
A dumb is a deep underground military base. So a lot of those don't exist anymore. Now, there are still plenty of tunnels that have been, made by I'd say the mafia organizations, the cabal. The IRA runs a lot of the mafias around the world, including like the Italians and the Colombians and so on and so forth. MS-13 has gone exclusively to human trafficking in a deal with the CIA. I mean, those people in Virginia. And that's a fact, okay? They're the biggest traffickers in the world.
Who is this?
The Virginians.
Okay.
And globally.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were they using these dumbs like as some sort of like way of getting kids around at all? Were they utilized? Or was there no connection between the two?
I would say at some point, yes. Missing people also went under there. So like as an example, all those people that everybody thinks died in 9/11 didn't. They went underground as slaves. They were kidnapped basically by an agency and taken underground. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Let's see here. Diana Miller was asking, this seems like a relevant question because I mean, there's a lot of questions and I honestly cannot get to all the questions. So please understand that, everybody. Please comprehend that. You don't have to understand it, but comprehend it. Comprehend it, please. I'm wondering if, and this is Diana Miller, I'm wondering if MedBed's quantum biofeedback devices will be available soon, or is that delayed? Because we talked about Tartaria, free energy, and maybe the suppression of information because there's something that was available to us that they didn't want to have available to us. So they hid that history from us.
Yep.
So are these MedBeds and things like this coming around the corner?
There are 150,000 MedBeds currently in operation and only accessible by the cabal of the deep state.
So it's only the bad guys have access to it per se.
Yeah. And those are the ones that they lifted
our
off
perspective.
of the others.
Because obviously the bad guys don't think they're the bad guys from their perspective. I would imagine they think we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because Lucifer, I would imagine from his perspective, doesn't think he's evil and doesn't think that what he may have done is wrong.
Well,
that's where the perception thing can really be a true bitch, because
I mean, there's some things.
Perception is reality.
Okay. There's some things in our mind that we know are wrong, right?
Truly, like killing one another.
Killing one another, we pretty much, but see, they don't look at us because we don't think killing cattle is bad. We don't think killing chickens are bad, right?
So that's where we're kind of the hypocrites in a way.
We're kind of a little bit of hypocritical there.
Because we don't want it. We don't want this to be done to us, but we don't have a problem to other things on this planet.
Yep, we don't.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
They look at
though,
us as cattle. Remember that, right? So how do you look at it as slaughtering a cow to feed your family? You know?
They justify it.
Yeah.
And from their perspective, they're not in the wrong.
That's right.
Wow. Can Kim access by name any individual's information or life history in the quantum computer?
Intelligence report, yes.
Did you do a background intelligence check on me?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, I had to ask. I even asked Kim. I've never asked anybody this. I guess I can ask you again because I don't think I got a full answer. What is your perspective of me?
From what standpoint? Like on a personal level? Like how
just
are
like
you as a
how are
person?
you? Well, just in general, like combination of all. Like, what were you, like? Where was your head at when I was? Do you mind me coming out and visiting you? Because you're obviously I'm in Kim's home. That should say a lot in some areas, even if I'm not in complete agreement with you about 100% of everything.
Sure.
We're still being really nice and cordial to each other, having some laughs about our sarcasm.
Yeah.
And having laughs at my frustrations.
You know,
it's like normal people doing normal things. I mean, we've gotten to know each other.
I appreciate your interview style, right? You look at everybody's perspective on things. You're not judging anyone. You're not slandering anyone the second you hang up the phone, which has happened to me a lot, right, recently. And, you're just getting the information out there and letting people make their own decisions. You're not trying to control the decision-making process. You're not creating saviors, right? You're not saying, this is the God of the universe. Oh, we're not worthy, right? You're just giving, you're letting people express themselves and their own opinion, right?
Right.
And we do not always share the same opinions on things, but the one thing I can tell you is that the information that I do have that I've given you is 100% provable and the truth. And
you've been very transparent, which is the one thing that's, it's just a matter of going through the stuff. But I mean, you have been very, very forthcoming with information. And I baked a muffin
this morning.
Yeah, I'm waiting to eat my muffin. I have to eat it after this. Cody ate half of his muffin.
Half, yeah.
So Tank was talking up the cooking, so I had to try to take advantage. And I'm definitely going to probably take another, take one with me extra. There was something I was going to ask in relation to all this.
But to answer your question, yeah, I know about your background and everything, and I am the least judgmental person on the planet, right?
Which I appreciate.
I'm not here.
I'm not perfect.
Well, you know what? No, I'm not either.
That's since we're saying that too. That's what I was going to say. So even though you're in this position as guardian,
it's a job,
right? That doesn't make you any better than me, any more powerful than me. Or do you see me as an equal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see Cody and everybody watching as an equal?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's how we need to start interacting. And that's where I've been talking about.
Because even if I get this, like, let's just say $1 bazillion lands in your account tomorrow, right? If you don't do something, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I had access to something like that, I mean, there's so much I would want to do to help others. You know, I've told, you know, I'd like to do something to help the homeless problem. Looking at like Los Angeles is a great example, and undergrounds of Las Vegas, and seeing how these people live. And there's no reason anybody should be hungry and not have a home.
Well, I grew up as a kid in the projects, so I'm well aware of what
That's where we can relate to each other 100%.
Yep.
My mom was on welfare. I have no problem.
Mine too.
I have no problem admitting that.
Yeah, mine too. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means. Got into my first fight when I was 11. You know what it's like over there, right? We all did it, right? So, you know, I'm not happy about all these things, but I was exposed to a lot of stuff at a young age, and the world needs to change. There's no reason why good, talented people, even people like yourself, right? I mean, why are you not able to hire a team to run this mouse right now? To look at these questions.
I wish I had a team. She's got an awesome team. A shout out to the UNN team. Shout out to that awesome graphics team and everybody.
But even them, you know, I mean, they're doing a lot of this stuff. You know, the app is not really profitable. It pays for itself, right? Yeah. Basically. So we do this all for free, and we do it because we love the mission. But in the future, you know, why can't I mean, our graphics people are amazing. They should all be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Whatever the industry standard is, you know, in my opinion, we need to double it. I mean, even the person serving you and waiting on your waiting at table, right? Mm-hmm. We should be able to pay those people more money. And if the cost of food was correct, we would be able to, right?
I was trying to see if there was just anything else I wanted to, because we are going to be wrapping things up here very shortly. Just want to make sure I'm being respectful of Kim's time as well.
He just wants the muffin, guys. Don't let him.
Well, I mean, obviously, you did that interview with Jay Campbell, and he was appreciative every time. I mean, I've gotten 3 interviews with you, and I got to say, between the 3, it's probably equated to 5 hours, maybe. And then you got to think of the time we spent on the phone, the time we spent. So you've afforded me a lot of, and I really feel like time is our most valuable asset that we have. You know, and you were very, very generous with your time, which I appreciate.
You know, I feel like, you know, I watch your stuff now, right? And a lot of Life Force and you know, people that follow me follow you now too. And it's just a different perspective for everyone. And I love the way that you bring out the best, or your hopium bubble bursting, right?
Yeah,
but is this true? Is this real?
Yeah, because I just don't really like the idea of people feeding people with false hope. And it's also, it's irresponsible for the people who are expecting that hope.
Yep.
But it's equally irresponsible, if not more, for the people who's giving that false hope. So it's like, instead of us giving false hope, let's work together. Because again, when enough people take a stand, nothing can stand against the people. And we can make individually, we can all make an impact, no matter how big and small. But together, we can literally change the world. And in that aspect, like I mentioned to you, we don't need you specifically. We don't need Donald Trump specifically. We just need what we have, which is ourselves and each other.
I agree with you. Now, think about it this way. We wouldn't be waiting for Donald Trump, right?
Everybody's still waiting. If
we were all doing our own thing, you know, if you actually, we talked about this as well. He said, well, you know, everybody's waiting for the money. But if every American citizen, let's just take America, right? There's a little less than 400,000 American citizens on any given day, right? Plus you've got a bunch of people that are not citizens, and then Biden's letting everyone in. So it's totally fine, right?
Right.
So we probably got about 420 some odd million people living in this country, right? Whether they're students or, you know, they're coming across the border in droves. Biden's greeting everybody personally at the border right now, you know. Funny.
You mean his hologram or whatever it is?
Yeah, his holograms.
His clone with the blood eyes. I saw something where he was doing something and his eyes started bleeding or something, and you could see like red. It was weird.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's like a clone thing, because I mean, I'm not even sure what to think about that. Like, just the whole idea. Is that
we
Biden?
need to not think about it. See, that's the thing.
we overcomplicate things.
Politics is the Hollywood for ugly people. I'm sorry, but it really is.
Ugly people entertainment?
It's ugly people entertainment. That's Castle Rock Military Entertainment Complex right now.
Did you say Castle Rock did Matrix? I think you might have said something about that.
They did Jupiter Ascending.
Jupiter Ascending. That's what you said. Okay.
Yeah, a number of other films too. Mnuchin is involved. He makes a lot of money out of Castle Rock because he's Black Sun too.
Is our inheritance that you talk about that it's due to everybody? Is it in a fiat currency? That would be the last question because a couple people did ask that.
Okay.
Is it where
currently
we get gold,
at this
silver? Sorry, I don't let you answer.
Well, currently at this moment in time, the back system works like this. If there's X amount of value in assets in the United States, right? That's in-ground assets and everything else that is considered a vault currently. It's divided by the number of citizens currently living there, and then it generates cash against those assets, right? So there's a fiduciary responsibility. So it's like dividing all the assets of the United States by every single person that lives here. And the same has been done in every other country. Okay. So there's papers, because unless you want to carry around a sack of gold or a sack of silver, which you could do, right? We could mine it all and you can start doing that, or you can carry around papers. It's up to you.
Okay.
But we don't even need to use these things as monetary value either, right?
We can set value to anything we decide that we agree has value, like puka
if
shells.
we can all get along enough to just agree, right? We can make Hostess Twinkie the currency of the United States if that's what you want to do. If you all stand together.
Put your Twinkies in your wallet.
Well, because if you all stand together, that means that the guy that owns the grocery store, right, is going to buy his produce in Hostess Twinkies, right? And the guy selling the produce and the farmer accept Hostess Twinkies, which can then go to the other store or pay their rent in Hostess Twinkies. And if we all agreed Hostess Twinkies is the way to go, we can make Hostess Twinkies that God knows they're never going to degrade. They're like McDonald's hamburgers, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we could make Hostess Twinkies the currency, but we all have to get along and we all have to agree. And as soon as the faster we do that, then you can choose what currency you want to have as a means of barter.
Do you mind if I ask one more question? This is because it's actually
Sure.
a good question. It's from New Now for You. And I'm just going to read what it says. It may not 100% make sense for the first part. She meant, why restore the republic, create a new republic, but to have a restoration plan for a new republic sounds the same, but different.
Okay, well,
Because I don't know. I'm really kind of confused about what the actual restoration plan is.
Okay, restoring something, right, means to go back, right? So if you're going back to an old form of governance, you're going back to something that someone else created for you again. That's not being sovereign. Being sovereign is self-governance and being able to conduct yourself in the same manner as you relate to someone else, right? So restoring of the planet to go back to the way the planet was before their industry.
It's going back to a different point. That's a more positive point for a start over point.
Correct.
So it's I get what you're saying. I think everybody else does.
Yeah. And so if we go back to
when did all the fuckery begin? Because that's not even a bad word.
Oh, you can say that word?
It's not. Well, I'm pretty sure it's not.
It's like a tapestry.
Yeah.
You know,
when did the fuckery begin? Because if that's the case, you go back to the point before the fuckery began.
Yes.
And that would be the restoration plan. Where you're saying
we'll
restoring
have
the
nutritious
republic
food again.
is just going back to a restoration of repeating the same cycle. We're trying to break what was taken away from us.
Well, on this planet, let me give you a kind of a clue. Okay. On this planet, we are officially human 7.0.
Yeah, because you're saying that we're not the first.
Every couple thousand years, they've wiped us out and started again. Now, there's a reason for that. A cycle is 1,008 years. 1 + 8 is 9, right? This is your
Tesla, your vortex math, your sacred geometry.
And so every time the light is about to take over again, right? It's dark light, dark light, dark light. That was the timelines everybody's talking about. So we just finished the 9th cycle. So whoever wins this round wins forever. You see?
Yeah.
That's where the spiritual war comes in.
Which ties back almost to what we were saying, which kind of circles back around and just really kind of brings all this together.
Yep. So if we go back to human 1.0, I mean, we all will be walking on water. We will all understand the ether. We will all understand how to change matter, right? To mimic, to connect directly to source and our creator, right? Which is not an alien. It is source, God.
Energy.
Right? One energy source.
Or something, because I don't even want to define it because it limits it if we define it.
The Ashkaic, how do you say it? Records? I don't know.
Akashic
records. So we'd all have access to these things if we were human 1.0. And DNA restoration, right? Back to all 36 strands firing. 3 + 6 is 9, right? I'm telling you.
369.
It is truly the secret to the universe, right? So, but if we all had our original DNA, we wouldn't be having these conversations. We wouldn't need to get into an airplane. We would be having a whole nother technology system. But these people have worked very hard at wiping us out every time we start to progress. But hopefully not this time.
Do you have any questions? Any one really good question? And then we'll just go ahead.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. I will do a follow-up. It's not going to be much different than what we're talking about now. I'm just going to share a lot more documentation, a little bit more detail, and go over the stuff. And then I'm going to ask people also with the things that we've shared and the things I'll share. Please share any logical information you can to help with research. Because, I mean, ultimately, I haven't 100% gotten all the clarity I was hoping to get, which isn't a bad thing, you know, because I've been realizing that some of this I can't attach to logic.
Would be like the auctioneer.
Right. So, you know, I was expecting something, and I always tell people is, you know, sometimes we expect things to happen, and obviously not all those things turn out the way that we expect them. And that was one of these situations. I didn't know what to expect, but I was trying to define some expectation, and that kind of left me slightly. You get what I'm saying. So I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, I will do another video going over these documents. I would encourage people to make sure to smash that like button. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, Rice TVX, I'd encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Do you want to plug? Because I like the UNN Plus. I really do. I think it's cool. Do you want to plug it?
A lot of people don't really. You didn't really even know what it was, right?
No, I didn't. It's like I have a Netflix and HBO Max, and those things would be included.
Yep.
And it's like half the price, and you
get Showtime,
and you're just paying one service. And it's also kind of going back to help what you guys are trying to do in a sense. Yeah.
So UnitedNetwork.news is a website, but we also have an app that you can download for your phone. We have some material that requires this small subscription fee to access. And our Live at 5 is always available every day at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the most part, right? So we have real news. That's what we offer, right?
Yeah. So trying to give an honest report on news from a non-biased perspective, so that's not trying to force you what to think.
Yeah, we give you the real story of what's really going on and why they're doing this. Because all the media is cabal controlled. I'm sorry, flat out, it really is.
Well, we know it's like 3 companies that control them all, really.
Yes, and Fox News is the same. Sorry, but it is.
It seems like it.
Okay, half the people that work there are agency people.
I mean, well, they fired, I forget his name, but they fired that guy who was like the top show. And you would think from a investor perspective, you don't cancel your #1 rated person. But if it's going against your message.
Which also earned them ratings, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, do you know who I'm talking about? I can't remember. It's some old dude. All right. Well, again, I'll be doing some more.
Yeah.
And I encourage you guys to check out Life Force. I encourage you to check out United Network News.
United Network Plus.
And United Network
which gives you 13,000 live channels, gives you over 50,000 movies and series on demand. We actually offer more than Netflix and Hulu combined. Yeah,
and a cool thing, too, I will say, is that it does have like a Netflix original series. So like one of the movies I was suggesting, not that this is a series, Netflix series, but I encouraged Kim to check out the movie They Live. And then we looked up, I was telling her about the pirate documentary that was on Netflix. That's an original Netflix series that shouldn't be on any other things aside from Netflix. So you're getting full access to Netflix, but not going through Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like minimizing your information going out, which is
we were testing it out. Yeah.
So I do appreciate you doing it because I had no clue. I just thought it was like
casted it right to the TV. We pulled up that movie in under 5 minutes. Yep.
It was awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate you tuning in. I'm going to go ahead real quick and just throw up the little thumbnails. How I like to always end my videos. If If you have not smashed that like button, please hit the like button. I'd encourage you to hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with my videos as they come out. Please be subscribed. Check out my Patreon channel. And as always, I mean this really, I encourage every single one of you, including myself, be the change by practicing change. And I love you all. We're going to wrap up the stream on Rice TVX. Thank you
Good
to
night,
all the Life
everyone.
Force UNN